One of the most powerful steps in emotional intimacy
Mm.
is when your spouse says something like, "Look at that beautiful bird." You don't just go, "Hmm." You say, "Wow, that is beautiful." Somehow you acknowledge that they just said something that
Mhm.
means something to them.
Every bit of you is sacred by design. Nakedness, I know,
Okay.
vulnerability, real authenticity, connection. On this episode of Sacred by Design, we're diving into intimacy
Yeah.
issues. And
Yes.
as we begin, it is important to know that intimacy is more than sex.
Absolutely. And this is so important because, we really don't talk about it. We don't really unpack it. And when I first learned about this, that there's all these different faces of intimacy, it was so encouraging to me
Mhm.
for myself, for my marriage. And because intimacy issues in marriage are very common. I mean, we have so many people coming to Regen, women who are struggling in their marriage,
Mhm.
and it often has to do with intimacy. And when we say that, I don't just mean sexual intimacy,
Okay,
some
so
aspect of intimacy.
So what do we mean then by intimacy? Because this is a great time, everybody, to grab a pen and paper as we look at 6 different aspects.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, here are
Yeah.
6 different aspects of intimacy, and understand that each area is important and
Yeah.
each one is complicated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, it's really important too to make this point. Each couple will have different strengths and weaknesses.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
they may vary according to seasons. So, a couple may be really good at having activities
Mhm.
and things that they do together. That's something they don't have any problem with. They can go out, they can have fun, but they really struggle with the emotional intimacy. And then in
Mm.
another season of their marriage, they may find that it's flip-flopped. So every couple's going to be unique.
Mhm.
And even your marriage is going to be unique. You're going to go in and out of some of these strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good to know. All right, so let's start with emotional intimacy.
yeah. This is a big one. It's
Uh,
very foundational,
Okay.
right? And
Well,
we
yeah.
probably think, oh, that's so obvious that emotional intimacy would be important in a marriage. But we'd be surprised
Mhm.
how sometimes we really don't intentionally work at that or have it.
Mhm.
So emotional intimacy, it requires a certain amount of transparency and openness. It involves connecting emotionally and vulnerability. And some of us aren't very good at that.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of a certain partner. What's a great way to grow in emotional intimacy, Kit?
But it's so foundational. And we want our marriages to be a place where we have freedom to express our emotions,
Mhm.
where we have freedom to receive another person's emotions.
Mm.
And it's true, as you know and I know, different people have different levels of comfort with emotional intimacy. Some
Yeah.
of us thrive on it, want more of it, and others are like, yeah, uh, okay, we've talked about this for 5 minutes, I'm done. So we need to really understand our partners, where they are and
Mhm.
honor the
Mhm.
differences.
Mhm.
And that can be hard. We kind of just want to say, why aren't you more like me? Why can't you do this? But so how do we encourage each other and say, let's figure out a way that this works for both of us?
Mm.
How can I get my emotional needs expressed and heard?
Mhm.
And how can I honor that this is hard for you?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, uh, that's good.
Yeah.
I was just thinking for my husband, when I become too much, it's like a red flag. The
Oh,
red
yeah.
flag goes
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's just a hand signal of like I'm emotionally overwhelmed.
Same here. When my husband just looks at me like, because I can get very intense and it's hard for him.
Mhm.
And we're learning,
Mhm.
but we can honor each other. Like he can kind of say, that's enough. And I can say, can we have a little bit more? And you just work it out.
And you work it through.
Yeah.
All right, so physical
Oh,
intimacy.
can I give you an example of emotional intimacy that's
Oh, yeah.
really, really helpful? It's such a simple thing, but John and Julie Gottman, who are people I highly recommend their books about marriage, talk about how simple steps to build emotional intimacy. Turn towards one another. turn towards one another.
Okay.
It seems so simple, but one of the most powerful steps in emotional intimacy
Mm.
is when your spouse says something like, "Look at that beautiful bird." You don't just go, You say, "Wow, that is beautiful." Somehow you acknowledge that they just said something that
Mm-hmm.
means something to them. It's
Mm-hmm.
called bidding.
Mm.
It's a bid. So these ongoing bids, or someone comes home and they're like, "I've really had a hard day," and you don't jump to, "Oh, you had a hard day." You say, "Oh, okay, tell me about it." It's
I don't
just-
want to talk about this anymore. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Sorry, everybody.
So anyway, it works. It works. It's a really simple. So turn towards one another and respond to one another
Mm-hmm.
rather than do nothing or turn away.
That is so simple, but
Yeah.
so I can feel.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Wow.
here to tell you that it really works. So, yeah.
Okay. So then, gosh, and there's 5 more to go.
Yeah.
Physical intimacy, but this is not. Is
It's
this
not,
sex?
It's not sex.
Okay.
And it's really important to separate the two.
Okay.
Apart from sex, having physical intimacy is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this, right? I mean, some of us more than others, but the tenderness that can come from holding hands or giving each other a hug or kissing each other, hello or goodbye, or any kind of that physical touch, especially for people who have that as a love language, it's really important. And people have different needs there, but it's good to know what is your spouse's desire for that, what's yours, and how do you make that a part of your marriage?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but this can lead to sexual
And
intimacy.
often it does.
Right.
But it doesn't have to, and I think that's a big thing too. Remember that
Doesn't have to.
physical intimacy does not have to lead to sex. It can just really be holding each other, hugging each other, kissing. And then, of course, it can. And, sexual intimacy is beautiful, and it's very important, and it's very unique for a married couple. I mean, it is a beautiful shared self-giving and trust. And it's not just physical, it's spiritual, it's emotional. And this can be challenging for couples, especially those of people that we know who come here who've had betrayal. It can be very hard to build that up again. But it's important, you are sharing this exclusive kind of intimacy with just that one person. And I that's really quite profound. I share this with you and no one else. This is for me and for you and no one else.
I love, we've said it here before, that intimacy can be said as into me, you see.
Yeah.
And that is a type of intimacy, as you're saying, that we just don't share with everyone.
It's really, a beautiful covenant that we say to each other. I will share this just with you. And again, how powerful and profound that is to share something that you don't share with anyone else. And, it's a broken world. We have different sexual appetites. There's often differences in a marriage between, appetites. And that's okay. It's not bad. It's not wrong. We just have to be able to talk about it and be honest about it.
Ooh, that's a good conversation starter, too. A lot of these could be really great kickstarters for conversations with your
Yes.
spouse.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what I love about this is the conversations is all here, but we're talking about intimacy. And so this leads to our next one of intellectual intimacy.
Yeah, isn't that an interesting word?
Yeah.
Interesting concept. But I remember that my husband said this once when we were doing a sharing with some newly or pre-engaged couples about, marriage. And he said, "You know what? Be interesting. Be interesting." I love that. So there's this idea of, seek out new ideas. If you know your partner's interested in something, listen to what they say or ask them about it. Do it together. Listen to podcasts, read a book. both my husband and I love birds. No, that sounds like an old person thing. I guess maybe it is, but we love reading about birds and sharing with each other. That's an intellectual intimacy. That's a coming together with something that's interesting that you can learn about, that you can share about. So it makes marriage more interesting because you each bring something unique.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so cool.
it's kind of fun.
Intellectual intimacy. I love that.
Yeah,
The next issue involves fun,
it
recreational
really is
intimacy.
fun. It really is fun. And we really forget that because marriage is hard. If you have children, it's even harder. Children really interfere with marriage. I've said that before. It's so true. I love my children, but and so there can be a lot of just getting through things, and you forget that you can have fun.
Yeah.
And so figuring out how you have fun.
Yeah.
We know a couple who just took up pickleball. They just think it's a blast. They're having so much fun. Hiking,
Yeah.
going to museums, going to plays, going to concerts.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, just find out something that you want to do that you can enjoy together.
Okay, I love that you said that because I know I threw my husband under the bus at the beginning of this. However, the recreational intimacy, we both did wake surfing together. Never done it before. We both awful at it, but the willingness to be brave and try something new together.
Awesome.
I felt so connected.
It's awesome.
That was so fun. Yes.
Yeah, really. And
Yep.
so be brave, be willing to try something different. And it can really be a stress reliever. When you're going through hard things, and you do, whether it's with your children or health or anything, they're, like having fun together really is a stress reliever. And we
Yeah.
all need that.
Oh, I love that.
So let's move on to spiritual intimacy because this is, again, very foundational. And what I want to say is different marriages are in different places about their understanding and commitment to God, and individuals can be in different places. But that doesn't mean you can't have a spiritual intimacy. So even if you're in different places, how do you talk about your commitment to God? How do you explore having a shared exploration or commitment to God and aspects of living a spiritual life together? And so I think it's really, each marriage is unique. And so find your way to share ideas and thoughts about God and to figure out how that's going to be a part of your marriage in some way, shape, or form.
You're bringing two unique humans together to make this marriage. So unique makes a lot of sense. Oh.
And again, I mean, I really think this is where I want to just like make a very strong encouragement. Uniqueness. In all of these things, be aware that there's a great temptation and danger to compare. And your marriage is your marriage. And you get to create it. And you don't have to be like anyone else. You don't want to be like anyone else. You want to be true to your marriage. And it's unlike anybody else's. And it's up to you and your spouse. You get to create it. And so enjoy that opportunity and beware of comparing because that only leads to disappointment. And you know how it is. You see things on Facebook. It's a Facebook life. It's not a real life. And when we compare our real life to Facebook life, we always become disappointed.
Yeah.
So be careful. Enjoy and own, the beauty of creating your own marriage and don't compare. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you ended with that.
Yeah.
Because, gosh, this is great homework to look at the emotional, physical, sexual, intellectual, recreational, and spiritual intimacy. And what is your strength?
Yeah.
What is your weakness? What could be better?
Yeah, exactly. You can sit down and, have a little date.
Yeah.
And say, like, I heard this podcast. It was really interesting. What do you think are our strengths and how do we capitalize on that? What are some areas that are, maybe challenging for us that we could really work on?
Because this exclusive commitment and connection to each other is holy, it is sacred, and it is hard.
Exactly. And it's a gift and we want to nurture it. It's not just going to, stay healthy on its own. It has to be nurtured and and taken care of.
These are 6 beautiful ways to approach it. Thank you so much, Kit.